Are there people in your life who have changed or significantly impacted, or who are the people in your life, and how have they impacted the way that you view life, and that have impacted your outlook on life?
I think the most significant influence in my life has been my father, who unfortunately died at the age of 70 in 1998. That was a big loss for me. And when I refer to him as Dr. William E. Schatten, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, I always, may the memory of the righteous be for a blessing, because I thought he was a very righteous person. He was very special. He had the unique ability to be a wonderful father and a fabulous doctor, a world-famous plastic surgeon, and an incredible community leader. So he was really a triple threat. But he had the most influence on me. I think time-wise, he could have spent more time with me, but if he did, he wouldn't have been able to do the community stuff he did and be the incredible plastic surgeon he was. But the impact he had on me, the lessons of life he taught me, the importance of family, the importance of being excellent in your profession, the importance of giving back to the community when you're blessed to have, in his case, he had more money than I, but when you have money, when you certainly have leadership qualities, which and I have leadership qualities, all that I learned from my my father. The other thing was that he was the most incredible listener, and I think I get better as I get older, but he could listen to anybody and tune everybody out, tune everybody else out. So he would listen to your problem, listen to your story, and always have a very sage and pertinent comment to make. And throughout my life, I've tried to emulate that unique quality. And everybody who knew my father would always remark on not only his warm smile and warm heart, but his ability always to listen and to get to the core of the matter rather quickly. He spoke slowly. Some people think he just spoke slowly, as I do, but other people think he spoke slowly because he was always thinking so much when he was speaking. But he was a unique individual, and I've tried to emulate him every day, and I miss him every day. And unfortunately, his life was taken from him at the age of 70 with sarcoma, and he had a huge impact on me and my family and on the medicine world and on the Jewish community.
As you turned into a leader of the Jewish community, especially through your presidency, which was after Granville died, were there certain things that you saw in him as a leader that you recognized that you aspired to utilize for yourself?
Well, yeah, he's the one who first, he was always known to be given a Devar Torah for every meeting, and I did that. And I think I've done a very good job doing that. I always give a Devar Torah even when it's not expected. His speeches were always short and to the point. I don't think I could speak quite as well as he does. He would always have this typed out by a secretary on an index card, and he'd always get to the heart of the matter. And he was involved in many more organizations. Again, he had more wealth, and he had more time. He was able to take off Thursday afternoons and really devote that to community activities. I was not ever to take off an afternoon. But he had a more breadth of causes. He fundraised for certain things. I've done much more fundraising than he has. And also I'm more observant than he was. And I think he taught me the value of Torah scholarship, and I think I took that to a new level. But all those things that I learned came from him. And whenever I would succeed in something like Torah scholarship or fundraising, I would always think that my father would have been very proud of me.
Who are the other people that have really impacted you? So Granville was number one. Other people, and they can even be historical or people you've known that have really impacted the way that you view the world and view yourself and view life.
I never really had a mentor in medicine, which I wish I had. Gerald Weitzman, I mentioned him yesterday, was a rheumatologist who was a Renaissance man in NYU, and I had him on my third-year medical rotation, and that's probably why he's the main reason I decided for a rheumatologist. But as far as a physician who's really impacted me, I've always looked to have a mentor, and I never was able really to have one. I think in the Jewish world, I think Rabbi Epstein, and Rabbi Goodman, and Rabbi Yossi Nu have affected me a lot in the way I view the world and view Judaism. Also, Rabbi Stephen Weiss have affected me a lot about the way I view God and Judaism.
Okay, let's I want to explore some of these. What has Rabbi Nu given to you that perhaps you wouldn't have had if you had not been so close with him?
The joy of life through being observant. And when I grew up, I always looked at the more observant you are, the more don'ts and cannots that you do. But he's really Chabad, and Chabad through him has taught me that there's a beauty of Judaism with limitations, that you can really still have a joyful, very joyful life with observing men.
And Rabbi Goodman?
Rabbi Goodman probably taught me more the value of the Jewish community, being a community leader, what it means to be the head of a large synagogue, and then in my case, the president of a large synagogue, and how to take different factions and try to unify them under one roof.
What would you say were the largest lessons you learned as a synagogue president? And I would say that's probably your biggest role that you took in the community was to those 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from that process?
Not in order of importance, but I learned that to be, I should have been a stronger person. I took, on big manners, you need to, I think I've gotten better at it since I was president. I was president 2002, 2004, is that on strong matters you need to say, this is the way it is. And trying to get consensus on issues that are so important, you get consensus, but if you don't, if you're the leader, you need to be more of a leader. And the thing I didn't learn was I was always trying to make people happy. And that's not always what you have to do. Sometimes you have to lead by example and get people on your team, but you have to have a goal. And if it's the right goal, and I don't mean if you're an N of one, but if you have a significant minority doing the right thing, then that's what you need to do, as opposed to trying to please the majority, which oftentimes the majority doesn't know all the details going on, and they really need you to lead by example. So I learned I should have been a stronger leader.
Do you have an issue in particular where you felt that having more strength would have brought a better result?
Yeah, when the synagogue split with Rabbi Bortzman, Rabbi Karpuch, and Rabbi Shapiro, and we birthed Or Hadash, if I'd taken a stronger stand, that wouldn't have happened. And I was influenced by too many of the people instead of doing the right thing, which would have been to continue the synagogue as one synagogue, as opposed to even though the details were not, I don't want to do all the details, but even though a lot of the details happened beyond my control, if I'd been a stronger person, I think that I could have kept the synagogue together. That's my biggest regret.
But as a leader, how do you navigate the tension between not being a dictator and also doing what you know is right?
That's the tension.
So
a dictator is when you're an N of one or N of two, and you tell people if you have a learned minority or an invested minority, you have good advisors, then perhaps what you need to do is get those advisors to equal people on your team and not try to do it yourself. But you always have to have votes counted when you have a meeting. But you need to. Sometimes I let loud voices or loud angry voices sway my opinion when I should have let sane voices sway my opinion. And I think that's a true leader doesn't listen to the tone of the voice, but the substance of the voice. And I've gotten better at that since I left the presidency. I wish I'd had that maturity when I was president.
What were your biggest successes as president?
We really established the Atlanta Jewish Male Choir as a real entity, and that was very, very nice. Before Cantor Fox self-destructed, we were able to get a cantor with an incredible voice, which was just a beautiful addition to the synagogue. When he self-destructed, we were able to get, actually this was after mine, but I was involved in getting Barry Kerman, who's the choir master of the Atlanta Jewish Male Choir, to come work at AA, who picked up the slack that Cantor Fox had, and able to keep the synagogue together, even though the heart of it was taken out when Rabbi Bortz and Rabbi Carpenter left and formed Or Kadash during my term as president. So, and for a while I was able to keep it, some tradition there. Now, with the new people involved, it's become way to the left. I've forestalled that for a few years. I don't know if it no longer makes a difference, but AA will soon be reformed. And at least for while I was there, it wasn't reformed. So, in long term, it doesn't make a difference, but at least while I was there was still some nice tradition there. And we're rapidly losing that.
As president and the day-to-day tensions that arise in having such a position, what did you learn about yourself as a person going through that process of?
That I was a very good multitasker. I could do many. I always knew that. But you have to. The key to being a good president is to rely on other people. I had a very valuable assistant who was my medical assistant, who I relied on her a lot. But to rely on good, loyal people. But to be able to run a medical practice and also be able to run a synagogue, a lot of sleepless nights, not because I couldn't sleep, just because it was up, you're up too late and get up too early in the morning. But it taught me that I really was working at capacity for 2 years, and it's nice to know that, when you have to, you can work overtime and do a good job.
It's something we talked a little bit about yesterday, but take, for instance, in terms of the future conservative Judaism, like I think it was in the early 50s that they made the decree that you could drive to synagogue, which for me, I understand that kind of separated communities. But that was a decree that the rabbis decided, that you could drive to synagogue, and then people moved away from the shul because they could now drive there.
And then start going to the malls and everything else. The decree originally was to go to synagogue.
So, but in terms of your view of Judaism, how much of ritual observance or halacha is meant to keep Jewish people Jewish, and how much of it is about what the actual halacha is and what is divine and what God wants? So what I mean is, there's two things that happen when you could drive. One view could be, no, this is against halacha, right? It's a halachic problem, God doesn't like it. The other one is, no, the purpose of this halacha is to keep it is to protect community. So how much do you see halacha and Jewish observances about community, and how much of it do you see as like tradition and God?
I think the original, you can make up halacha that you could drive, because the car does this and whatever, but it is against halacha. I think the concern of the conservative movement was that people weren't going to come to synagogue if they couldn't drive. The fact was they already were coming to synagogue and driving, so it was kind of ridiculous that they made that decree. I think that if you look all across the country, and I presume around the world, but the strongest Jewish communities, even in the conservative movement now, are the ones that have neighborhood synagogues. When a synagogue's near where you can drive in 1 minute or choose to walk on Shabbat. But synagogues throughout over 2,000 years have always been community places. So I think the community aspect is the most important aspect. We can go to Beth Tefillah in traffic in 3 minutes. So it's around the corner. And when you have a synagogue right in your neighborhood, it's more conducive to going there, meeting there, going to classes there, going to services there. So I think the community aspect is more important than the halachic aspect And I think as long as the reform and conservative movements pick a plot of land and then say this is where I'm going to be, and people come here, then they're not going to grow. And actually a lot of the smaller conservative shows, I can't speak for reform shows, the ones that are successful, are in Orthodox areas or have a lot of people around them where people can walk to synagogue. They can drive if they want to, but a lot of people choose to walk. It's a wonderful thing to walk to synagogue and see your neighbors on the way, and it's but the most important thing is that it's around the corner.
Do you think Torah values or religious values are necessary to fight Western materialism?
I think they help. I think a good family life probably also does it. And I think if you want to do it through a Jewish lens, you need to use a Torah. But I think to fight materialism and hedonistic view on MTV and the films we get from Hollywood that are even R-rated and that our preteens are watching, I think that comes from parents. I think when you have a Torah basis for it, and again, you have to be modern Orthodox about it to really work, I think that adds to it, but I think a lot of that comes from family values.
Okay, starting with not before this incident, before the predicament we're in now, have you experienced other losses or sufferings or crises that have shaped or colored your life, and how so?
Well, the two biggest ones are one when we dealing with Alan and Todd having Fragile X, which we talked about yesterday, but because of Janet, that she was able to smooth that over and work with it. But that was when we realized, or I realized, they were never going to grow up to be college graduates. And then my whole outlook on what I viewed as a normal upbringing for a Jewish boy was going to be different. That was a tough time, but not for a long time. I mean, they've just succeeded so well. Most best examples of the way they performed at the bar mitzvahs and the way Alan now performs his job at Kroger. So that was temporary. And the biggest loss was when my father was sick for a year and then died in 1998. That was the biggest loss I had. I had a temporary loss also when I left academics. I was head of rheumatology at Grady from 1995 to 1988. And then because of political reasons, I left. And that was so I always envisioned myself as being a clinical researcher who saw patients, taught residents and fellows, and wrote papers in rheumatology, and that just wasn't going to be because the political atmosphere wasn't right. And actually, the two people who advised me the most were my father and also my father-in-law, Leon Goldstein, and they were the ones who really got me to move on. So that was a temporary.
I don't know. I don't know about this. This was 95 to 98.
No, 85 to 88.
Okay. I was about to say I don't recall it. What happened that led to your leaving?
The person who was my immediate boss, I was the number 2 person in the department. The person who was number 1 was an older clinician who was very, very, very conservative. And as we spoke yesterday, I appreciate a sick patient. I'll do anything I can to save their lives. And sometimes you have to give them too much medicine, and they may have complications, but at least you save their life. And his philosophy was, it's better for the disease to kill the patient than to give medication that might cause side effects. And whenever innovative therapies came out, nothing was working. I was one of the first ones to want to use it, and he would never want to use any innovative therapies since they've been tried for X number of years. So he and I clashed on everything. And I went to the head department of medicine and told him my problems, and I said, I would be head of the department if you want to, but I can't work under this guy. And he said that he was interested. He'd just come into the head department of medicine. He was interested in taking care of cardiology, pulmonary, and renal first, because more people died with the wrong medicine there than people died in rheumatology. And he wasn't going to change, although the head of the rheumatology didn't know it, but he said he's going to go out, but he won't be leaving for another 2 or 3 years. And I said, I can't wait that long. He said, then you're going to have to leave. I'm not ready to tackle rheumatology. So my dreams, which had been for years to be an academic physician, and then it was academic rheumatology, were shattered. But again, my father and father-in-law really got me through it.
Now that it's 20 years later, would you have navigated that in a similar manner, or?
Exactly similar.
Okay.
I went to the head guy and got advice from two people I respect, and it's time to move on. And I learned later on, many years later, that he was right. That, you know, when you're the head, and as we talked about being president, you have to make tough decisions. And his decision was that he wasn't ready to tackle rheumatology. It didn't matter that he had a hot shot like me on the staff. He had to take care of what was best for his department, so he did. It was the right move for everybody.
You mean your boss did the right thing?
The boss, I didn't see it then, but he did the right thing. That was a strong leader. Stop it. Alan, go ahead, Mom, please.
So, you mentioned that one of your greatest losses was Granville, and that's come up many times. How has his experience with cancer affected the way that you view your own cancer and the way that you're battling yours?
He was not aggressive with his cancer. I've been very aggressive with my cancer.
So tell about his experience.
He had sarcoma of his femur, big bone of his leg, and he had surgery, but he needed to have his leg amputated. And I kicked myself off for not convincing him to have his leg amputated. Janet reminds me that he would never have done it, but I think with my maturity now, I could have convinced him. I wasn't as mature 8.5 years ago as I am now. But actually, that's maybe almost 9.5 years ago. So, no, 8.5 years ago. So, and then he got cancer in his lung, and then he decided to get chemotherapy. And God forbid that happens to me, I'm not going to just prolong a death. So mine is to be very proactive in my cancer. I've helped direct my cancer care, obviously with the experts' help, but and I think in the background, I've never thought about it. He asked a question. I think the way he handled cancer is the exact opposite way I'm handling it. Maybe that's colored with my aggressiveness.
Okay. Do you have any other additions you want to make to the impact of kind of, kind of down moments or suffering and how that's colored or impacted your life? Do you have any other major ones?
I don't think so. My life has mainly been positive.
Okay. So then to go to a note of positive, have you had moments of joy, ecstasy, peak experiences, or breakthroughs that have shaped or changed your life? Like major great events. They can be, it can be something like an affection towards nature or any just specific events.
I think the greatest events have been meeting Janet and our wedding, the birth and growth of each of our wonderful boys, God willing, the wedding of the two of them. I think our honeymoon in Hawaii, many of our vacations to Palm Beach and for winter vacation, and then the yearly trips to Hilton Head, our family trip to Boston in 1995. I think those are the highlights. We used to have big parties. Actually, I started doing a lot of parties when I was in medical school, never in college, but a friend of mine, Larry Bornstein, and I were the official partiers at NYU in medical school. And then when I came back to Atlanta in 1978, intercept residency, I was working too hard to do that. And then when I met Janet in 1980, we moved to Boston in 81, we started doing parties, especially Kentucky Derby parties, on the first Saturday of May. We're very famous for our Kentucky Derby parties. Over 100 people with mint juleps from Grandma Eva's recipe of mint juleps. and betting and split up the winnings of it. We'd have to give a certain amount of money to tzedakah and a certain amount of money for betting, equal amounts, and split the winnings up in order to give the rest of the money to tzedakah, to charity. And those were events, and then we morphed into, as I became more observant, into really fabulous Shabbat dinners that we have. And so I think those are highlights in my life. Other highlights are watching each of my boys achieve milestones in their lives, whether it was reading, writing, playing basketball, good friendships they formed, travels of Jeff and Michael. Those things bring great joy to me. The other thing is when my rheumatology practice, unfortunately I practiced rheumatology for 22 years, seeing sick patients get well, and often very sick patients near death get almost entirely normal. And that's very, very, very rewarding. That's why I became a doctor. And especially when you know that it's really mainly through your intellect, of course with God's help as well, but it's through what you did and how you educated the patient to become part of the team. It's very rewarding. And even probably more especially when you have unintelligent patients and you get them medically educated, and they take ownership of the disease and get them well and back to a normal life, or educated patients back to their jobs and almost 100% normal. That's just, there's no greater reward professionally than you can get with that.
Do you have any one specific patient that you feel like that you remember most and that you think you really made the biggest difference?
There's so many I really can't. I can't. There are a lot of patients that I've really helped.
The one patient I remember growing up was Rhonda
Walter. Yeah, if she had lived, I would have used her as an example. She had the worst case, the most aggressive case, scleroderma, and actually this was the days before we had hospitalists. So, but probably many Sundays for several years we'd go see Wanda in the hospital, all the family would. And for a while I got her scleroderma under control, but then it eventually got the best of me. She got a virus and she died. Actually, I spent the night in the hospital night when she died, and I was there when she died. So that was very traumatic, probably the most traumatic patient. But for a while I got her better. But there are many patients that since then, I've had one other one who was as sick as one, and she died also. It's pretty rare in my patient with scleroderma. I've had some lupus patients who've been as sick as she has and who've lived. And but it's very, very rewarding again when you have sick patients who are at death's door and you change your life.
Yeah, I definitely have many memories of you coming home and telling one story after another where they were unable to walk and they come in, 2 months later and can live their life again.
Right.
Will you tell, I know it's not an up story, but it's one of my favorites. Will you tell the story of the guy who hijacked the helicopter?
Well, I've also had my share of crazy patients. Perhaps the craziest patient was a guy who was referred by another doctor who had Raynaud's of his feet, where his feet would turn different colors in the cold weather when it's wet, and it'd be very cold. And he would always come to my office wet, even in July or August. You could be having a drought, and he'd come in with a raincoat on and he'd be wet. And his shoes were always wet, and his boots were wet, his socks were wet, and his feet were cold. And didn't take me very long to realize this guy was crazy, as well as having Raynaud's. And we tried different medications on him. I don't ever know if we ever got him to see a psychiatrist or not. But I remember it was the weekend of the Masters golf tournament in Augusta. We were in Atlanta, some family reunion on Janet's side, and one of my brother-in-laws was talking about, you hear about this crazy guy who hijacked a plane, and they said, and somebody said his name. I said, wait, that's my patient. And I said, no, it can't be. I said, it's my patient. I said, what happened? He said he went to Chicago and befriended this woman at a bar and said he was going to leave all his money to her. He was a loner. He was going to leave all his money to her. He was going to hijack a helicopter, a small plane, out west and kill himself and the pilot. Of course, she thought he was crazy. And the next day he went to Arizona or Utah or somewhere, hired a helicopter, a small plane, and killed himself and killed the pilot. And the plane crashed. And the only reason why we know the story is because he had told her the story. This is reported in the press. 1 or 2 days later, the doctor referred me said, when the FBI calls you, and it's FBI because it was across state lines, I'll take care of the FBI. You don't say anything because I'm the one who referred you to him to me. So the FBI never called me. He dealt with it, but that was probably my craziest patient.
What were the either cultural or personal taboos in your early life, and how have taboos kind of changed over time? It kind of be about you, or just kind of taboos that you've noticed.
The worst thing is respect. There was much respect in my house. I'm not talking about love, I'm talking about respect that we gave to our parents. And you gave to teachers and you gave to rabbis. And that was just, children gave respect, teenagers gave respect to adults. And there's a total erosion of respect, both in my house and in the culture. And I think that's changed for the worse. And that's the biggest thing. Also, the way people dress, there's much more exposure of women's bodies, which I don't really understand because as women try to become more equal in all respects, they hold themselves out as sex objects. But that did not happen when I was growing up. And but I think the main thing that disturbs me is the lack of respect that kids and teenagers have growing up, and it's and the free use of foul language, which I don't like. But I think that goes along with the respect.
What experiences or beliefs have affirmed your sense of meaning in life?
Well, I believe in God. I believe in God who's involved in the world, and that helps me a lot. So I also believe in science, and the way science has developed in my lifetime has just been absolutely amazing. But I think the world is just too perfect for there not to be a creator. I think miracles happen, and that I believe in. That's why I believe that it also points towards a creator who's involved in people's lives. In my personal life, I've seen 2 kids of Fragile X who've blossomed. I think those are miracles. And personally, I've survived 2 cardiac arrests, which I think are personal miracles. I've seen the creation of the state of Israel and the survival of Israel through many wars. Despite all odds, I think those are miracles. And I think miracles are caused by God. So I have a real affirmation of my faith with my belief in the God who's involved in the world, both on a macro and micro level.
Are there other things that have affirmed your sense of meaning?
The meaning of life?
Of your life, yeah.
Well, I think I've affected many people. I think I've affected many people both as a husband and as a father and son, son-in-law, brother-in-law, brother, relative, physician, community member. I think I've made the world, I know I've made the world a better place through my role as a family member and as a rheumatologist and as an active member of the Jewish community. I think I've played a key role in making people better people and having more self-confidence and a better feeling about themselves and leaving my mark on the world.
So if I would, I just want to make sure we have it. So one part is God oriented, and the other is connection to your fellow man and making people better.
Yes.
So kind of like a 2-pronged Okay. And have there been any incidences in your life that have had the reverse effect and kind of negated your sense of meaning?
Yeah, I think when my father died, that was very, very tough. And I think the negativity against me when I was president, which prevented me, that's why I said I should have been a stronger person. I think the negativity affected me, and that disaffirmed my faith in people. Our first one was faith in God with my father, and then it was faith in people when I was president, when I got personal attacks. And what people should have realized is I was devoting my time and actually loss of income, because I was spending too much time becoming president. I was doing it for the good of the synagogue, and I've never ever in my life that I know done anything for personal gain. That's just not in my ethos at all. And the way I was accused, it was my enemies, really, people who didn't like me, really thought it was more personal, and that's just not the way I operate. So those are probably my two lowest points.
How has the past, since December 2005, impacted your view of meaning in your life?
Well, as I said yesterday, the meaning, my biggest role right now is to remain alive, to be a husband and a father. And what I've realized even more, the most important impact you have in life is on your immediate family. When you make it important, and there are many families where people choose not to make it important, but if you choose to realize that your role in this world is to impact those closest to you and most immediate to you, which is your immediate family, then that gives you meaning of life, and it gives me the reason for fighting this really uphill battle to live, so that I can remain an effective husband and father.
All right, you met Mom in 1980. I want you, your first date, I want you to go through it and tell me your initial impressions of Mom.
I had just had 4 blind dates in 3 weekends in May of 1980, and I'd really given up on women. And then Aunt Betty Ann Schusterman, who was my mother's, who's Janet's aunt, my mother's best friend, called me up one day. I was finishing my 2nd year of residency, about to begin my 3rd year, out of 3 at Emory-Grady. And she called up and said, "You need to go out with my niece, who's just come back from Texas." And I said, "I'm not going out with girls. I've just been on 4 blind dates 3 weekends. The last one, yelling at each other. I'm not interested in blind dates." And thanks to Aunt Betty Ann, she said, "I'm going to call you every day until you say yes." And sure enough, she called me every day for 3, 4, 5 days, however many days it was. So finally, I said, "Okay, I'll go out once, but if I go out once, you have to stop calling me." She said, "Fine." So we went out on a Saturday night, June 7th, and my trick was to always go to a movie, but Janet was coming in from the lake. She realized that she was going to fall asleep, but she always does fall asleep in a movie anyway, but especially she falls asleep then because she was tired coming in from the lake. So we decided we had to break my mold. My motto was that what I usually did was I would pick up a girl for a date, a blind date, and Phipps at that time, Phipps Plaza, you'd always go to Phipps and you have to wait 30 minutes in line for a movie. And I would give the girl 30 minutes. And if we hit it off, and afterwards we go out for a drink or something, and I'd call up the next week. If we didn't hit it off, then after the movie's over, I'd say, "I forgot I got to get early for rounds," and I'd take her home. So a woman always had 30 minutes to prove herself to me. And then we'd see a movie, which at least I got a movie out of the evening. But your mom broke the mold. So we went to her apartment, and we ended up playing tennis, our first and only time playing tennis. We're both so bad that we agreed just to try to volley it over the net. And then we went back and watched a Vietnam movie. We watched a Vietnam movie sitting down and lying down on the floor of her apartment, and sure enough she was dozing off. I'm not sure if she really fell asleep, but she was like dozing off. And that was our date. I think we had some popcorn and some food she made, and but we really liked each other, and started seeing each other just about every day after that.
But when you first met her, how long did it take you to realize that this was someone you could see a future with?
Oh, future with? Probably about a week, but someone I liked that very night.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she was cute, vivacious, lively, intelligent, good conversationalist, great smile, loved life, interested in herself, interested in me, and just fun to be with. And then I really started to fall for her probably within a week, and it was, the chemistry was there. But the first night I realized this was, certainly somebody probably special, but I didn't think about long term. But about a week, probably thought about long term, because she was just a unique person with a real joy to life.
And then what happened?
We got engaged in 8 weeks. Actually, very interesting. The night we got engaged, we were going to see Judy Kravitz. Don't forget, I was a resident and I was on call, and we were at my parents' pool, and we came home early because I really wanted to see Judy Kravitz with her. It's one of my favorite movies. But I had the wrong weekend, the wrong TV guide. So Judy Kravitz was the week before. So I had no plans. I was going to, had a ring for it, and I was going to get engaged sometime. I didn't know when I was going to do it. And I said, well, myself, I'm going to get engaged tonight. So I asked her to marry me that night. I was going to ask her probably a few weeks later. And she said, yes, because Judy Kravitz wasn't on. And of course, your mom is so typical. You probably don't know the story. I put the ring in the sink, and told her, asked her to go into the bathroom to get me a Kleenex or something. And she went in several times before she saw the ring. It was right there at the sink. So then she saw it, and she said yes, she would marry me. And about 30 minutes later, my old girlfriend called for the first time in well over 2 months, which is very interesting. She asked me what was news, and I said I just got engaged. So she talked to Janet that night and told me congratulations. That was our engagement night, because Judy Kravitz was on, and your mom finally found the ring.
Tell me about your old girlfriend. I don't know much about her.
Jamie was a psychiatry major, and she was a year behind me in NYU Medical School. And she was quite serious, so kind of the opposite of your mom. But cute like your mom, very nice person, same body size. But she was more nervous. Your mom's not nervous, but she was nervous and uptight, and in retrospect, not as fun to be with. She required more work, but she's a very nice person. And actually, she met your mom. We had dinner. She came over to our house for dinner. We were in Boston a few years later. We had a nice evening with her. I haven't heard from her since then. But I'm glad we broke up, and I'm very fortunate that I married your mom.
Do you have any funny stories or your fondest memories with mom? Or a funny story?
Yeah, when we were dating, we were dating a few weeks, and we were invited to go over to my residence house, my senior resident. I was a junior resident, so I guess it was in June, so it must have been, whatever. It was within a few weeks of dating. And he lived kind of far out, and we got there an hour late. We both realized we both had bad sense of directions. And that was the only doubt I had in my mind. I said, if she's getting me lost, and I found later on she had the same doubt. She's a bad sense of directions. I'm worse than she is. But that was my only doubt, was how can I marry somebody with his sense of directions almost as bad as mine? And since then, we have gotten lost plenty of times. Many times, including our most recent trip to Texas this past year, and this past week, so we get lost all the time. It's just part of our marriage.
That's great. All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit about your values and your commitments. Can you describe the beliefs and values or attitudes that are most important in guiding your life?
It's a difficult subject, so I may combine values, attitudes, in my answer. But one of the ideals that I lead by is that I want this world to be a better place because of me. And those people who are closest to me, I want to influence them in a positive way. So I try to form very close relationships with my wife and my 4 sons, and just as they influence me for the good, I try to influence them for the good in all they do. And my guiding principle is that you want to help people to grow to become better people, sometimes in an informal way, sometimes in a formal way, but always influence people to be better what they are. And directly with my wife and my kids, it's by setting a good example, whether it's by my work ethic or by my way that I'm nice to people, include people, influencing people either at our Shabbat table or in the Jewish community, or whether it's through Jewish values and Jewish ritual. I try to lead by example, and I hope and pray that my example will rub off on Janet and the 4 boys. As a physician, I try to relate to people. Since December '05, when I first got my cancer, I think I'm a much better healer. I used to be a very good physician. I think I'm a very good physician and a healer, because I can relate to people on their level because I've been so sick. And but I've always tried to make patients better off, both in a physical sense and a spiritual sense, and what they in their whole life being better because they've encountered me as their physician. And then in the community, and then with friends in the community, I try to, I get out of my friends, and I get out of a lot of my friends out of the community, and I give back, often unintentionally, but sometimes intentionally. But I always want to, make each encounter, certainly each relationship, where the person feels better about him or herself. After they've been with me, it may not be a specific visit, but certainly or a specific encounter, but certainly in a relationship, I hope that people become better people because of me. So those are my values. I think I'm influenced a lot by Judaism. I'm fairly observant, and I try to do what I think that the Torah would want me to do, what God would want me to do, to be a good person, to influence the world, my family, and the world for good. And but I think that's more of my subconscious. I don't think I directly say I'm doing this because I'm Jewish, but it's because it's the right thing to do. The one thing I did learn early on in practice was that I think it's in Sanhedrin, but it's certainly somewhere in the Talmud. But it says you're supposed to look at each person as there's a piece of God in them. And when I learned that 15 years ago, it really helped me dealing with what the journal used to call the hateful patient. Because many times you get patients you just don't like. And when I understood through the Judaism, you always see that everybody has a piece of God in them, or some godliness, and that's really helped me to deal with people, or specifically patients I don't like. When you encounter people, you don't have to deal with them, but when they're my patients, I'm now able to deal, past 10, 15 years, I've been able to deal with people who are not necessarily nice people, because I realize there's some spark of godliness in them. So those are the values that Judaism affected my life.
It's interesting, you go back and forth between on the one hand, your kind of objective belief that it's very important that you affect other people for the good, and then your use of backing that up through our liturgy and through Jewish thinking. I was wondering how you see the two of them interacting, as in how much of our relationship to our fellow man is objective, like nothing to do with religion, doesn't matter whether you're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, objective to God, nothing to do, just on a humanistic perspective.
Well, I think I'm much better because of my Jewish learning. It's not liturgy. Liturgy is prayer.
Sorry, I meant Jewish identity.
But it's Jewish learning. Since I started learning Talmud seriously, first with Bernie Wolfberg about 1993, 94, 95, and then Daf Yomi on a more serious basis, I guess 2003, 2004, 2005, 2005 until I got sick. When you learn what the Talmud has to teach us, that's really influenced me again, sometimes subconsciously, but I think I've become a better person, because when you put Jewish values and Jewish teaching and 2,000 years of Jewish knowledge into what you do, you become a better person. So there's no real split, there's no dichotomy in the Jewish learning and the way I act. I think I act better as a person because of the Jewish learning I've had.
That's what I was looking for. Good answer. All right. What is the purpose of human life?
That's a question I've asked myself probably for the past 20 or 25 years. I think I would give two answers. One is to live as godly life as possible, as good a life as possible, to do the right thing at all times, love your neighbor as yourself, and to be a good person. I think the second one is what I've said before, is to make your mark on the world, make the world a better place, to make people better for knowing you, and make the world a better place. In my case, through medicine, through teaching Torah, through kind acts, to leave your mark on the world, to make the world better. But the exact purpose of life, I can't answer. I can only answer indirectly, because I've been asked that question for 20 years, and why we are here and what's God's plan for us. When I get into talk to my Chabad friends, we're preparing ourselves for Mashiach, but I'm not sure that's the real purpose of life for me as a single human being. But I think to be a good person and influence people for the better is the best way I can answer only indirectly that question.
In terms of, and I came across a lot of this in Israel, with Phil and with Alec and Jared King, we met a guy in Mea Sharim, and the right wing of the right wing, and his answer was everything is about the world to come. And I thought it was interesting because Chabad, it seems, is kind of both. Like, you get it where they're also this world oriented and also the world to come. And I kind of want to get your perspective on, I don't know, balance, or kind of the Mashiach world to come heavy versus this world.
That's what I like about it, because even though they're Orthodox, they're observant, they have a real joy to life. And whether I'm at a secular party or with my family or treating patients or doing religion, I think it should be a joy to something. I think there's a time to be serious, like on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur. When somebody is dying and you're holding their hand, it's a time to be serious. But I think most of the time, even when you have heavy things going in life, it's to have a little laugh or have a joy to it. It's very important. Chabad looks at the world that way. And Chabad also, as I said, when I get into, they always, often you hear a rabbi in the sermon, it may come to pass when Mashiach comes. There's a whole prepare the coming of the Mashiach. So you always have to look at the future of the world, because I think there's a purpose in the purpose of life. That is one of the purposes, is to make this world a better place, so that the Messiah can come, make this world a more perfect place. But and the best way to do that is to live a good life and influence people.
Do you believe in the coming of the Messiah?
Yes, I believe there will be Mashiach coming in the future.
I'm gonna change the tape.